It is interesting to note here that we have a similar scenario with that which we had on the New Zealand USD, on the Euro USD. In a matter of fact, what I notice is that most of the major peers, that is the USD peers, have of this same setup at this point in the face of the market. Now, looking closely into what's happening on the daily time frame, we definitely will agree that this is a bearish trend. As we can see, the bearish trend line used to connect a series of lower highs since the beginning, since mid last year, confirming that this pair is indeed very bearish at this point in time. So zooming into what has been happening since the beginning of March, we will notice that price action at 1.08500 has been holding price for a while before we saw that breakdown of that demand zone mid-April of this year, which looks almost similar to what we had on the New Zealand USD. So allow me to level this demand zone so that we don't get things mixed up at this point. So we had a demand zone here, not until price broke that demand zone mid-April to emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point in the market as we continue to see lower lows and lower highs. Sorry, we saw this lower low, lower high, lower low, and a lower high, and we already have another lower low at the end of last week's trading session. So now, how are we going to take advantage of any trading opportunity on this one? How are we going to buy? Are we going to wait for opportunities to buy in such a way that we look for price to come back into that bearish trend line identified on the daily time frame and look for opportunity to sell to continue the selling trend? Or are we going to wait for opportunities to line up for us during the week to sell this pair in the form of a retest of the structure at this point to sell, continue selling the euro against the USD? So allow us to scale down to a much lower time frame, let's say the 4 hours time frame at this point, where we really need to zoom in and see what has been happening since the beginning of the month of May. You can see that we had an impulse leg prior to the beginning of the month where we saw this move, after which we saw that price fell into an indecision phase, which is represented on the chart as the consolidation phase. We can see where price has been juxtaposing between 1.06 and 1.049 since the beginning of the month. And this move hereby led to a scenario where we saw a breakdown of that demand zone, of that consolidation phase as well, to the downside. And after which we started seeing this move that looks more like a higher low and probably could be a reversal pattern to send price back into this trend line identified here, and probably this demand zone, which will definitely now be a new supply zone at this point. So at this point, allow me to, we already have this, we have this demand zone here that was holding price for some time before that breakdown, and definitely we want to see another impulse leg. See that this is an impulse leg at this point. So we all understand that after every impulse leg there is always a retracement phase, and the retracement phase is always going to, if the trend is going to continue in the direction of the leading prior action, we want to see a retracement phase into the golden zone area, which is right between the 50 and the 78.6% retracement. So if we have our impulse leg right at this area, then we want to be looking for a retracement into probably between the 50 to the 78.6% retracement of that impulse leg. So we should be having something like this. If we run our retracement tool through the length of that impulse leg, we have something like this with our golden zone falling right within this area, which might probably be seen as our new supply zone at this point in time. So for the sake of clarity, allow me to label this. So let's give it a new supply zone with a question mark because we are not sure if that is going to be the new supply zone at this point. So let's do this like this and let's delete this. So what I'm saying at this point with the scenario we have here on the 4 hours time frame is that we might be expecting price during the course of the week to do a retracement phase, as we can see signs as we saw the sharp rejection of 1.03500 and the later part of last week trading session, where we might be looking for a breakout of that structure to be a signal confirmation that we have begun a retracement phase, which will probably culminate right within the supply zone, which also shares a confluence with that temporary trend line I identified here on the 4 hours time frame. So what are signals that we're going to be looking out for to emphasize that the retracement phase has finally ended? Then we want to be looking for a reversal pattern around this area where we see a breakout of structure, a retest of structure to give us a confirmation that yes, we are going on the downside on this one. So now with this information at back of our mind, we want to identify a key level that will be our guide going into the new week. So if we bring out our line chart at this point and we turn left a little bit and bring out our line here, we will see that we have a key level right around this area, which has, though we don't have, okay, hold on a second. We want to look for key level where we had both resistance and support meet at one point in time in the past. So if I look closely, I think 1.05200 appears to be the most appropriate place at this point, as we can see that we had a support and a resistance at one point in time at this area. So if we draw that through and give it a gold color and we'll label it with key level at 1.05200, which is also a very strong psychological level, we will be having something like this. Allow me to put this on the right hand side. Okay, so we'll be having something like this. So let's go back to our candlestick chart rather. So we have the key level right around that area. So what this simply means is that this key level shall guide our actions going into the new week. So what we want to be seeing at this point is that we want to see price move into that structure, to that key level, and we want to look for structures that support a trend continuation to the downside at this point. However, if at any time we have a breakout of that key level, then we really need to hold and see how price is going to react at this point, or probably price is going to still go further up, or probably price will be aiming at the bearish trend line we identified on the daily time frame, which you will find around here. So I'm not sure price will go that far at this point, but we never can tell until when market opens that we can determine this. But with the little information we have right now, we can be looking forward to price coming into this key level. We look for reversal structures that support a trend continuation to the downside at this point. Now, at this point, allow me to note that it is, if you are a counter trend trader, it is possible that you might want to take advantage of this trade, which is around 100 pips thereabout, where if we look, let's scale down to a much lower time frame, let's say the 1 hour or 45 minutes time frame, I guess. Okay, let's use 1 hour at this point, where we'll be looking at this reversal pattern here. So with this reversal pattern here and having a neckline right above that area, if you allow me, let me give it a purple to differentiate it from the major trend line we are working with. Then we want to be looking for a breakout of structure, a retest into structure for a counter trend opportunity where we look for confirmations that support a trend continuation to the upside. So if you are a buyer at this point during the week, we want to be looking forward to this 100 pips advantage on this one. If we will be having something like this with our stop loss right below this area, that's around 30 pips, 35 pips, we take profit target around this area, which also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line and the key level and also the supply zone. However, if you are a major trend trader, then we want to hold on and see how price react at the beginning of the week, where we want to be looking forward to an opportunity where we see price right into this area. Then we look for selling opportunities to join the potential rally to the downside at this point. So to do a quick recap, the first thing I said is, first of all, you want to be looking for bearish momentum at this point. That is, we want to see price come into this area or this area to sell, or probably price we want to go up, and that's a long-term perspective. So we don't know how it's going to happen. But however, we went to the lower time frame and we identified a counter trend opportunity that we can take if we see a breakout of structure and a retest to give us a confirmation that price is going up on this one. So if we do have that signal, then we wait for confirmation and we take advantage of that trade. We never can tell if price will probably break out of that trend line and do a trend continuation to the upside. So that is two ways we can take advantage of this trade going forward. And there is one I saw later on when I looked at the lower time frame, that's the 15 minutes time frame, that I was looking for a situation where we might be having a reversal pattern right under this neckline here. And if we see something that supports a trend continuation to the downside, that is, if we have a breakout of this trend line, a breakdown of this trend line, a breakdown retest of this trend line here on the 15 minutes time frame, that is something like this, then we might be looking to take a sell opportunity with a take profit target around here, which will definitely give us around how many pips thereabout. So that's around 140, 120 pips thereabout. So mind you, don't get too much confused. As soon as market opens and we see how price plays out in the first couple of hours or days of the week, I will definitely share an update in the comment section on my TradingView account for the sake of clarity and better understanding of what is happening in the market. So at this point, I would like to pause the video and let's see how price responds to the present structure we have on the charts. So thank you very much and do have a wonderful night rest.